Let's move on, shall we? After a few days of practicing morphing and getting it right every time, Jake decides Marco is well enough to help infiltrate the Solid Citizens Award, which is being held in the same establishment as the Gathering of World Leaders during the David trilogy, because this book wasn't enough of a throwback already. The next handful of chapters brings the book into complete farce territory, and is about as much of a mood whiplash as you might expect. First, the Animorphs plan to hide in Tennant's salad as cockroaches, hoping to discredit him by causing a perfectly human reaction to finding large insects in your food. This is Plan A. Marco plans to morph Wolf Spider and join the rest in the salad, but winds up morphing into a spider-skunk hybrid, which causes everyone in the kitchen to freak out and chase Marco around with a broom. He only gets out of it by thought speaking to them and then slowly demorphing to scare the people away. I guess this is the only paying job in town right now because despite half the kitchen staff seeing an actual monster, the dinner continues to move forward. Marco demorphs and continues to pretend to be part of the staff, but then has to answer to a comically over-the-top Frenchman named Marcel. You! What are you doing standing around? Marcel. I recognize the voice. Get to work. But, no buts. You need something to do? It is the big market. That what? You are mocking me? Go, take care of it, immediately! God, just shoot me now. So the cockroach salad ends up being served to fucking Hansen, which I think is the only time the Animorphs ever directly interact with a real-world celebrity, unless you count watching from a distance, a la number 17 The Underground. So one of the kids from Hansen freaks out, and then more silly stuff happens, and recapping comedy is boring, and I really got to get this review moving on, so let me just say that these chapters are probably the best sustained comedy pieces Animorphs has ever done. Not its funniest moment, mind you, but it manages to maintain a decent level of chuckles longer than, say, number 14, The Unknown, the comedy book. Of course, it's also in direct contrast with the more serious stuff that happened before and afterwards. After the Animorphs fail several times to irritate Tennant in public, Cassie comes over to Marco's house while he's alone. While none of the other Animorphs saw his most recent morphing blunder, Cassie was able to put two and two together, and is now here to try and offer a shoulder. Cassie hung her head. She looked beat. Probably was. I was. I felt bad, like I'd let her down. She'd come over, as tired as she was, to try and help. I feel better, I said. Cassie rolled her eyes. Look, Marco, don't talk to me if you don't want to. Don't even talk to Jake, even though he's your best friend. If you have to keep everything inside, I guess that's how you are. But you need to at least be honest with yourself. Okay, I said non-committally. I'll do that. She got up, sighed, and headed for the door. Then she stopped. At the clinic we're always getting animals who are hurt or injured by humans, by jerks who shoot at them for no reason, or try and burn them, or whatever. And I used to get so mad. I just hated those people. And I feel like I was wasting my time because, there's always some jerk with a 22. I'd rage about it. But my dad told me, deal with what is. I was confused. What's that mean? It means the animal is hurt. Help the animal. She came back over to me and took my hand. Or in your case, Marco, it means that the Yerks are here. Your mother is Visor 1, and your dad is lonely. None of that should be, but it is. I'm kind of bummed this will be Zolki's last book for this series, because his version of Cassie is so much better from anyone else's, in that she's tolerable and useful. It feels like Zolki took a look at the original press sheet for Animorphs, saw emotional core, helps animals under the description for Cassie, and took the most direct and positive interpretation of that. This version of Cassie is not the emotional core in that she is the one who gives in to her emotions the most often, or that she is some lovey-dovey tree hugger. She is the emotional core in that she is the most capable of true empathy. Not in a stupid psychic Diana Troy kind of way, but in a practical, I am going to put my own baggage to the side and look really closely at what this person might be feeling and why. And here is suggesting that at least part of this came from the practical lessons she learned from the lifestyle she lives, and is able to give practical advice from that. Practical Cassie, that's a good name for her. This is pretty much the exact opposite of non-Zulky Cassie. That version of Cassie is so far up her own ass, so prone to moralizing based on unreasonable standards, and far more likely to have big emotional outbursts than sit down and actually talk out problems with her fellow Animorphs. She doesn't seem to learn anything from the lifestyle she lives, and her level of empathy most often than not just extends to, "You should think like me, damn it." The only time this version of Cassie works are in books where she's separated from the rest of the Animorphs, and, not in Australia. So we salute you, Practical Cassie, wherever you may be. But enough about Marco's traumas, back to the important mission of pestering the enemy until they do something unbeholden. Sometimes this feels like Superman trying to defeat Lex Luthor by flying over his head, going, "Does this bug you? Does this bug you? I'm not touching you." Which, now that I think about it, would still be a more Superman-y way of solving problems than breaking their necks. But the Animorphs seem to have found a winning formula, with Marco morphing Nora's poodle and attacking Tenet every time he steps out of the house. He doesn't crack in public, but it's clear that the little guy is getting to him, and Marco finds it rather therapeutic. But the Animorphs are running out of time, so they plan one final strike against Tenet at a television station where he's scheduled to broadcast a live show and meet the UPN guy. UPN. We turned down American Idol. "You know, it's a real shame I can't get to meet that UPN guy," I said. "I have a great idea for a new Star Trek series. See, it's way in the future, and the Federation has been broken up by the Dominion, and only 3 ships are still..." "Marco?" "Yeah, Jake?" "Don't talk to the UPN guy. Poodles do not pitch show ideas." "Tell me about it later," Tobias said. "Sounds cool. I always thought the whole Federation thing was just too easy and..." "Please!" Rachel exploded. "Next mission, girls only." "Yeah, girls hate Star Trek." Though Marco's idea is probably a lot better than Enterprise. So Marco hides in the back and tries to morph Poodle, only to end up a poodle-polar bear hybrid, which at least is useful for scaring the crap out of Tenet. Marco loses himself to the mixed instincts of his new morph, a combination of wanting to kill a seal and hump a leg. But eventually Marco gets it under control and manages to get back to 100% Poodle, giving Tenet the chance to try and strangle Marco to death. However, Axis turned on the cameras and this scene is on live television. The UPN guy sees this and ends the deal with Tenet right there, even though a show starring a puppy strangler might actually give them the ratings they need. UPN. I guess we have Moesha? So that ends Tenet's reign of whatever. Marco's morphing problem isn't really cured so much as it just never happens again, and Marco's dad and Nora get married. Wait, they've only been dating for a few weeks. That seems a bit fast, and oh dear Marco, I think there's a sibling in the works. But when Marco gets back home from the celebration, he discovers a message on his answering machine. A message from Visor 1. Post-book follow-up. I've been kind of harsh on this book, but honestly, it's not bad. Not by a long shot. It's just that the whole is lesser than its parts. The stuff intended to be funny is pretty funny. The stuff intended to be serious and thoughtful generally succeeded. The mixed morphing makes for neat imagery, and the villain is a nice change of pace from the Visor 3 show. It's a matter of how these things come together. Does a book about the psychological troubles of one of its main characters really need several comedy chapters with French stereotypes, axe antics, and celebrity cameos smack dab in the middle of it? And why aren't we creating a stronger thematic bond between Marco's problems and the self-help culture that's represented by William Roger Tenet? The book doesn't seem to have enough bonding tissue to keep all of its themes, ideas, and moments together. Instead, it just opts for plopping random ingredients into a stew pot and seeing what happens. And again, there's the matter of this book being a rerun. While some of it turned out better than number 12, The Reaction, overall it feels like a more tired runaround of the same ideas, and giving its plot to the one character it makes the least sense for. But then again, how can I say that, given that Zulki seems to have a different idea as to what the characters of the Animorphs are? Not in a big, obvious way, and his characters are not necessarily better or worse, but they're just tuned a little bit differently. If I had to guess, Zulki seems interested in keeping a surface level of basic human compassion for these characters. His Animorphs are less about their emotional and psychological damage, and more about the things about themselves they have managed to protect, their loves and humors and date nights watching Felicity. And with that in mind, a lot of what this book attempts to accomplish makes more sense. That Marco's dad is dating again, being the stress that sets Marco off, makes little sense in the greater context of the series. But in Zulki's Animorphs, this is seen as a disturbance to one of those protected things, namely his relationship with his father. It's like a soldier losing a personal item that means a lot to him or her, like a photo of his or her children. If you keep things scaled back to focus on the atrocities of war, losing that photo seems like a petty matter, but in a tighter character focus, the personal loss involved becomes clearer. The focus of things protected also makes for books that are overall more positive, and thus it's less out of the blue for spontaneous bits of comedy. You know, Jeffrey Zulki could probably write a really good episode of Doctor Who. This book seems to be on a similar emotional wavelength as to that series, more so than it does Animorphs as a whole. Jeffrey Zulki's Animorphs is an interesting series that I would love to read in an alternate universe, but it's not Kay Applegate's Animorphs, and playing by those rules, it doesn't always work. I give number 35, The Proposal, a 6 out of 10.
Lines form on my face and hands. Lines form from the ups and downs. I'm in the middle without any plans. I'm a boy or girl and I'm a man or woman. I'm 18, I get confused every day. 18, I just don't know what to say. 18, I gotta get away. Come on, Nick, fill in those drums there, will ya? Oh, yeah. You guys know what I'm talking about? Is this making any sense at all? I think it is. Whoa.